Hello, 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 friends. Thank you for listening, for being here for another episode of the Diet Diaries. This episode is going to come out Mondays at December 15th. And I had one topic planned, and I just decided to pivot today as I'm recording this because I just had a really great conversation with a client. And she had sent me a message in Voxer, which is like the app that we use to stay in touch in between calls, like a week or so ago, saying, hey, the next time we meet, can we talk about this? And she said, I need to talk about like all the fun seasonal foods out there, like the Starbucks drinks and the cookies and all the cool stuff in the grocery store and the stuff that's out around work, because I'm having like a lot of noise around it and just taking up a ton of space in my brain. And I'm just kind of like really stressed about it. So I'm like, okay, I need to talk about this on the podcast because I know that she's not the only one. This is something we all struggle with this time of year. I would argue maybe from like starting Halloween, like through January 1st. And I'm going to kind of talk through a couple of the skills that she and I talked through to help her work through it, and also some context. And here's the thing I kind of want to start off with. It is totally normal to be thinking about food more this time of year. Food is central to holidays. Regardless of what holiday you celebrate this time of year, food is central to it. And even if you don't celebrate a holiday, there's just a lot going on and there's a lot more food around. And so it is normal to be thinking about food more often. Then you kind of layer on top of that the scarcity around some of this, right? Like I think like the Starbucks drinks are a perfect example of this. And this is one of the things that we were talking about. Like she loves a peppermint mocha. I was gonna say peppermint mocha latte, but those are two different drinks. I don't drink coffee, so I don't know all the drinks, but a peppermint mocha. And I know they come out probably right after Thanksgiving and they take them off probably like, I don't even know, January 1st, January 5th. So there is scarcity around it. There is urgency around it. There is absolutely a real situation where you can only get that thing for X amount of time. And that is true for dishes that exist for one day, like let's say on Christmas, for something like latkes that we make once, we make them twice because we have like a friend party, or for any other foods that you may only get one time. And there's a feeling that bubbles up around, oh my God, this is my only chance. And the reality is, unlike so much of what I talk about in the context of most other foods, the other, 340 days a year, this is your only chance. And that is a real thing. And we can't pretend that that doesn't have an impact on the amount of food noise, on the choices that we make, and on kind of all of the self-talk. And so if we're trying to treat this time of the year the same as we treat every other time of year, like that's just not realistic, because it's not the same for a million different reasons. And specifically around food, everything I just talked about, it's not the same. And so we need to start expecting ourselves to make the same choices and behave the same when it's just not the same. And so I think like just acknowledging that upfront is huge and really important and can go a long way towards a little bit of like a perspective shift and a little bit of like, a little bit of normalization around some of the stress that we feel around the urgency, around I ate too much or I ate more than I normally do, around some of the noise, like, oh my God, and see all this sugar and all this like, no one says calorie dense. I say calorie dense, but all these like high calorie, you might say the words like, quote, fattening foods, right? That's kind of like the language that I don't use as a coach, but that's the language that real humans use. So I'm going to use it here because I see you and I know, right? And there's a lot of noise around that and guilt and, oh my God, am I going to gain weight and all of this? And so a really helpful skill that I talked through with my client that I wanted to share here is this idea of the jobs of foods. And I've talked about this many times before, and I'm not going to like fully deep dive into it here because I want to stay specific to these types of foods, right? Most of the stuff we're talking about here are foods that are like a lot of like sweet foods. And even if they're not sweet foods, even if they're savory foods, they're really going to be things that probably don't have a ton of nutrition in them, right? That aren't like protein or veggies or fiber or whatever. They're probably like mostly like more processed carbs or like lots of fat or sugary. And so the jobs of those foods, the job of a peppermint mocha, we can just stay with that as the example, the through line, is to taste good. That is literally its only job on this planet. And you have basically, let's call it 5 weeks in which to enjoy it. And so if we let those foods exist in terms of the job they are meant to do. And we stop trying to make them be something they are not. We stop trying to make them be a meal or something that's going to fill us up. It really helps to strip away some of the emotion, the negative emotion that we have around it, right? And if we start to use it in a way that matches up with its job, then we get to go even further, right? So like, if you are, let's say like you're a peppermint mocha person and you're like, well, that's, I don't even know, but I'm going to guess like it's around 400 or 500 calories, give or take. And you're like, well, there's 400 or 500 calories in this thing. So I'm going to have to cut out something. I'm going to have to like skip my breakfast and I'm going to have this instead to like, let's make a deal, even things out. It's a total backfire situation because the peppermint mocha is not meant to fill you up. It can't replace a meal. It's just meant to taste good. And if you try to get it to replace a meal, you're going to end up eating way more food than if you had eaten your normal meal and then supplemented it with the peppermint mocha to begin with, right? So if you expect these foods to do something that they are just not designed to do, that's where things are going to get really stressful and you're going to get in trouble. And acknowledging that these foods are allowed to just have this one job, just taste good, again, I mentioned this a couple minutes ago, can help pull away a little bit of the guilt, right? Like if you think to yourself, oh, these cookies, they're just meant to taste good and they're just meant to like, there's something that a lot of people I know make like Christmas cookies together and it's this fun family thing and you decorate and it's an activity and you're taking photos and it's an experience. I'm going to a cookie swap next week. but I haven't done that in a really long time. So I'm going to come home with all of these cookies, right? And I'm looking forward to doing this with my friends and I'm hoping that it starts like a new tradition that maybe we do every year. And so I'm going to have all these cookies around, right? And I'm going to need to be thoughtful around it. But I also know these cookies aren't bad. They are part of an experience. They're part of doing something fun. They're part of creating a memory. And when we start to acknowledge that these foods that are only meant to taste good often have these other associations with them, again, it's like it helps to start to pull back, not get rid of, but pull back some of the guilt that we start to feel like, oh my God, it's so much sugar. Oh my God, I'm going to gain weight. Oh my God, this is so bad for me, right? All of that noise gives you a way to respond to it. It's not going to replace that. It gives you a way to respond to it. And then, I think another big thing around this is because of the urgency, it makes it harder to check in and decide like, well, do I actually want this thing or am I only eating it because it's my only chance? Right? And there's urgency of like, there's 5 weeks of urgency around something like a peppermint mocha. And then there's like one meal of urgency around, I'm going to say like latkes, right? Which we do make 2 times a year, but even so, 2 times a year is still like, so there's so much scarcity around it, right? And I think practically the first thing around this is, well, you can bring home leftovers usually, right? So you can get a second opportunity. And I think there's a big decision here. And I remember talking about this after we went to Greece, which was, oh my God, 3.5 years ago. And at a meal that I like stuffed myself at and felt really sick afterwards. But there are absolutely going to be times where you choose to eat more than you would normally eat based on the circumstances. And urgency and a specific food combined is going to be one of those circumstances. You may choose to have an extra serving or 2 extra servings because it is so good, because it is so special, because you want to maximize your enjoyment of it. And that is normal. You probably wouldn't make that decision on like a random Thursday in September when there's not like a limited time offer on, let's say, like a vanilla latte or like a piece of cake from the diner or like a pint of ice cream from the grocery store, stuff that's always around. You're going to make a different choice around foods like that when you're working your skills than you are around a peppermint mocha that only exists for 5 weeks or around a plate full of latkes that you only get once a year. And that is normal, but you can still use the same process. You can still use the same skills to check in and pay attention. How much am I enjoying this? This same client, we had a similar conversation about this in the fall, or I guess it was probably like October, November, around a pumpkin spice chai. I think it was like pumpkin cream spice chai, whatever. And she was like, I look forward to this thing every year. And I had it this year. And she was like, I did not enjoy it. There's something about it that did not taste the same, and it made me feel sick. And she didn't even finish the one that she had, and she never ordered again. And it was like a non-issue. The peppermint mochas this year, she's loving. But all this to say that like sometimes we anticipate things and we build something up in our head and then we try it and it's like, oh, this isn't even actually like as good as I thought it was going to be. And in some ways, right, that's probably there's certainly, I think, a disappointment, but I think also it can coexist alongside that a little bit of a relief because it makes things easy or easier, right? If it doesn't taste so good, it's like, oh, well, I don't need to eat this. It doesn't even taste good, right? And if something doesn't taste good, why are you eating it, right? I think that's a really important check-in. So noticing right off the bat, does this thing taste as good as I have anticipated it all year or as I remember it being? Could be yes, could be no. If it's no, that's really useful information because you're going to be like, well, why am I eating this then? Like, right? So that's some friction. That's some good friction. If the answer is yes, it's like, oh my God, I have been looking forward to this and it is fucking as good as I remember and as good as I wanted it to be. And it's like, oh my God, I love this. And then part of you starts to think, oh shit, this feels scary. This feels dangerous. This is so good. I am going to go off the deep end with this food, right? So there's a both and on that side of it too. And look, it sucks when you overeat something that you love so much to the point that you feel sick. It's no longer enjoyable, right? We've kind of sucked that pleasure out of it. We've taken the one job that this food was designed to do, and we've kind of like negated the whole thing. And that's tough. And sometimes there's a fine line, right? So that's why taking home leftovers for a second day, if you want more, but you know that you're about to stuff yourself, take some home, right? Give yourself that permission to have more or to bring it home, even though you might not do that again, like on a random Thursday in September, because it is that really special food, right? And then notice, like, if I keep having more, am I still enjoying this? Am I going to keep enjoying this? Is the way I'm going to feel if I eat a whole nother piece of cake, is it going to be worth it, right? Am I going to put myself over the edge? So it's slowing down, taking a pause, right? None of these are new skills, but you're applying the skills that you not always use, but hopefully are learning through listening to this podcast and from following along with me. But the outcome might be different than it is on a random Thursday in September, right? So you might choose to have a whole nother piece of cake, or you might choose to have another half a piece of cake, or you might choose to have 3 more latkes, or you might choose to take them home with you for the next day. But you want to pause and slow down and check in and say, how am I going to feel when I eat this thing? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour from now? Am I going to be in a place where I'm still enjoying this food? Or am I going to be so stuffed that I feel sick and I've like crossed over that line, right? And just pausing and thinking that through for 30 seconds can make a huge difference. And also kind of just rewinding a bit back to like the enjoyment piece of it. Very often with foods that we love, the enjoyment starts to go down as we eat more and more of it. Like, I think you'll understand what I mean. Like the first X number of bites, 3, 5, 10 bites of something often are the best of something that you really love. And once you're 15, 20, 25, 30 bites in, it doesn't taste as good. You've kind of like maximized the pleasure and now you've kind of like adapted to it. I'm sure there's like a whole nervous system dopamine thing that's happening that I don't really understand, but I think that's an experience that is pretty universal. That once we kind of enjoy that flavor, that texture, that experience, after a certain point, it like quote unquote like wears off and the enjoyment starts to drop. And when the enjoyment starts to drop, that's a cue that we want to start to stop eating or slow down the eating or start eating less of it. But we don't know that that's happening because we're not looking for it. We're not paying attention. We're going fast. We're because of the urgency around this thing, we're just shoveling it in. We're not even paying attention, right? You've walked into this family Hanukkah party or Christmas Eve 7 fishes dinner or whatever it is, and you're like, this is it. This is my chance. I am going in for it. And you don't even give yourself the space or time to notice. Even with something like the peppermint mocha, it's like you've been looking forward to this thing all year and you have it and you're so excited that it's here. You're not even stopping to pay attention to see, am I really enjoying this? And once that thing is 3/4 the way done, like, does it taste as good now as it did 15 minutes ago when I started drinking it? Because you've already made the decision that this is my only chance. And so that is such a huge part of this, is pausing and slowing down and continuing to pay attention the way that you're doing the other 340 days of the year. You still want to do that now, It's just that the outcome of that may be different. You may choose to eat more because of the urgency, but you're doing it intentionally and thoughtfully. You're not doing it solely because of the urgency. You're not doing it because you've predetermined what you're going to eat or how you're going to behave. You are still staying to the extent that you can in the moment, right? And being thoughtful and noticing and checking in with yourself versus deciding in advance what you're going to do. This is how you deal with these seasonal urgency, scarcity promoted foods. And I think that's really, I'm looking at my notes for this. This is really the kind of the core of it, is using the skills that you always use and not just throwing them to the wind because of the urgency. And then giving yourself permission to make a different choice than you make on a random Thursday in September. And knowing that that is normal, and knowing that it's normal to be thinking about food more. It's normal to have more food noise. It's normal to maybe feel a little bit more stressed out about food because there's so much around. And that if you are worried about gaining weight, it's okay. What else? Oh, of course you are. That's the only thing you know. And it's the only thing you know because it's happened so many times before, and because it's what everyone's talking about, and because you know you're eating more. And when we eat more food, sometimes we gain weight, right? Like there's a lot of logic behind this. And I want to normalize some of these thoughts. And again, remind you that there's nothing wrong. There is nothing problematic with what you are thinking or feeling. And you can't really change those thoughts or feelings. What you can change, what you can impact is how you respond to them. Do you let yourself spiral into oblivion, or do you notice the thought patterns, the language, the self-talk, and say, okay, hold on a second here. Here's my brain doing its thing. This is normal. It makes sense why I'm thinking about food because all anyone's talking about food. And I have 64 dinners and holiday parties and all this stuff. And there's so much around. And I know it's only around for a limited time. Of course, I'm going to think about it more, right? And it helps to normalize it and helps to give you space to make a choice, to be thoughtful, to pay attention. So I hope this is helpful. It's a little longer than I want it to be, but I actually had a lot of fun recording this one. And keep me posted. If you want help, if you want support, I'm here. And I'll be back next week. I think I'm going to take a week off over the holidays, but I'll be back next week for one more before we close out 2025.